So VW has just revealed the ID Cross, their new electric SUV, and now Xpeng pushes to the European market with the Xpeng L03 that comes at the price starting below 36,000 euros, so less expensive than the fully spec ID Polo or ID Cross. At the same time, a way larger vehicle with a higher range. That means size-wise, it also competes against Tesla Model Y, VW ID4 and so on, either fully electric or with a range extender. So are the new German cars already dead now before arrival on the market? This will be super crucial. We're going to take a look here. Exterior, interior and technology of the all-new Xpeng L03 with Thomas Nautical Fuel in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with the front. In this very nice purple color. It's a trend nowadays, modern daytime running light here in the front. And of course then here, very closed EV look. The lower flaps here only open on demand and the CD value is 0.228. This is extremely low here for an SUV style car, but you see it's not too high. A little bit crossoverish maybe, also reminds us a little bit of the Toyota CHR because you have this floating roofline here as well. And you maybe know the bigger brother, the Xpeng G6. This one here is only 10 centimeters shorter at 4.65 meters or 183 inches. That's a little bit lower, a little bit less high. You know, the G6 is the more like grown-up SUV, this one then a little bit lower. We have here 18 or 20-inch wheels. These are the 18-inch wheels because the 20-inch wheels are also for the Ultra trim. Soon going to talk more about that. Very strong hip area then here, of course, independent rear suspension, and you have rear-wheel drive or optional all-wheel drive, 6.6 seconds in the rear-wheel drive with the big battery and 4.5 seconds in the acceleration figure with the all-wheel drive, where you get an additional electric motor in the front. The Ultra trim indeed is the top-end trim that gets 20-inch wheels and also 3 additional chips for autonomous driving and self-parking features. These features then are not included in the base versions. As I said, the German entry price is just below 36,000 euros for the small battery. You have 2 battery sizes. By the way, here, very nice integration of the rear light. It looks a little bit Porsche-alike even in the rear. The charging flap here is on the other side. So for the full electric version, you either get 56 kilowatt hours net LFP or 69 kilowatt hours, and you have 11 kilowatt AC charging and almost 240 kilowatt of DC charging for the bigger version. And all versions charge in about 20 minutes, 10 to 80% state of charge, which is kind of interesting because they are using the 400 volt architecture, and that might be disappointing at first, whereas the bigger brother, the G6, which is also higher in the pricing, uses the 800 volt charging architecture. But 20 minutes, 10 to 80% state of charge is really very good. So they make use of the full potential of this 400 volt charging system and offering a quite good charging curve, obviously. Then let's take a look here. The all-electric version does have a frunk. However, I can also give you the figures for the range extender version, which is always driving electric. But then, if you're running out of electricity from the 37 kilowatt hour LFP battery, then the combustion engine serves as a generator. It's a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder. Then here, under the hood of the fully electric version, gas struts, and then we also have a frunk that can house even more than a charging cable, so that is actually very well usable indeed. There we go. By the way, already before we step into the interior, these doors here needs to also comply to Chinese laws, of course, and then here they are integrated like this, a little bit like the so far BMW solution, but then they open manual like that. No lamination in the windows, but I mean at that price point, no problem. And but they're actually very thick, these windows, and then it's actually a good door closing sound. Although we have frameless windows or frameless doors, and that is also kinda rare. And we have 2 different interiors, a bright one, like light gray or dark gray. This one here is the lighter one. This is even more interesting. Let's take a look right here. And here we go. This is the light gray interior. Nice subtle ambient lighting integration you see here, and everything is nice and soft touch right here as well. Classic window controls. This is then The exit from the inside is also easy to use. The lower part here, this one is then hardpack. However, you at least have a rubber floor in the lower bottom. Then, once again, the light gray interior. Steering wheel is already an animal-free material. Also very soft, good material touch and real physical dials here with some galvanized metal knurling left and right. So, for example, for the volume. Also real physical dials here, for example, for the assistance systems button, for the driving modes, for example. And then the seats, this is also a high-grade leatherette in both color trims. Here you also have these purple accentuations, which are of course fitting into the exterior color, and super soft material from the surface, and also here good seating depth. So they especially paid attention to comfort. And here this metal knurling around the buttons here for the seat control, this is the lumbar support. In the Ultra trim, you would also get a point massage, whereas the base trims here don't have a real point massage, but rather a massage that only goes lumbar support in and out. And yeah, these seats are extremely comfortable indeed. You see from the seating position and the angle of my knees that it is not the highest SUV. So the G6 there would be more grown-up SUV, where you rather like sit like this. However, in the length, it does actually compete against also a Skoda Elroq or a VW ID.4, just at the price of the segment below that. That is astonishing. Steering wheel, in and out, up and down. The European version here, in contrast to the Chinese version, here gets also separate digital instruments, because EU and US customers especially appreciate to have real digital instruments. Yeah, I mean, they are, let's say, large enough and they're directly mounted to the steering wheel. That, of course, is like a short focus, you know, not a long focus, but obviously they couldn't like integrate it here. However, for long focus, no problem. They also have a head-up display, and almost everything is standard with the car. Here, interesting, they also have quarter mounts here that you can, you know, just screw in here like camera holders. Maybe we can use it during the driving part, I'm not sure. Or we just use our standard suction mounts. Yeah, the seat quality is really astonishing, and the comfort here with 189, 602, no matter where I'm measuring, is still enough space left. And also the inside covering here of the ceiling is all the way soft. And look at that now, Leah will appreciate that. Here, this mirror with light, and look at that, how large this mirror is. Hello, Leah. This is crazy. And also here, it's softly padded underneath. This is once again a theme we see quite often, that the Chinese new manufacturers, they really pay attention to this interior build quality. At a later stage, we always have to see how they hold up during driving, of course. But the stationary interior build quality is really cool. Yeah, the only thing, like when you're really tall like I am, then you feel that it's not the higher SUV position, but rather it's a little bit crossover position inside the vehicle. Welcome to the cockpit. 15.6-inch screen right here. Most of the functions go via that. Gear selection is easy here. Leah likes that. She always, when she's been driving Mercedes and then hops into another car, then she's always like, oh no, there goes the wipers again. Yeah, and left side is indeed like for the wipers and of course for the turning indicator. By the way, this one does have a glass roof that goes all the way across the car. There's no additional shade or something to apply. It does have an inbuilt heat filtering, of course. Everything soft here also from the dashboard. Nice material quality. Here's one more of these quarter mounts. Soft touch here as well. Nice ambient lighting integration. So really good material choices. Standard glove box here, not too large, but you have more storage space, for example, in the front right here. Then you have on the top here 50-watt inductive charging, also with ventilation. 3-dot adaptive design for the cup holders, and also some more space here underneath the arm. This goes really deep, and then you have USB-A and USB-C charging underneath as well. And you have even below here more space that goes even deep. I'm not sure why that goes in deep, like maybe so deep. Bottles? Maybe for, but there's also like another like 3-dot electric interface behind there. So yeah, not sure if this will maybe then the final version. But yeah, you have a lot of space. We can check it out in the rear very soon more. But yeah, it's really good comfort from the seat. That's the main thing. Still a nice seating position, although it's not too high, but I'm still fine with that. I would wish, of course, always for physical dials for the climate unit. At least it's easy to reach here in the screen, so it's not too far from the steering. And very important, this seat here comes not only with seat heating, but also with seat ventilation in 3 levels, both passenger and the driver's seat. So that's very cool. Steering wheel heating as well, and you get all of these luxury features as standard. You know, yes, the bigger battery will be a little couple of €1,000 more expensive, but then you really got to think about like what you get for that price, and that puts so much pressure on the existing manufacturers, because then people start thinking, hey, wait a minute, I get more features for less money. That's of course the thing in the industry at the moment. The mirror here in the top part is, by the way, also frameless, so a very elegant design. And they hired a lot of guys also from Europe for this one. The head of design for the exterior is the former Ferrari exterior designer. Not the one that designed the Luce, that's the Apple design. And here, of course, like the covering from the inside of the seating and so on. So there's hardly anything you see that is not like, oh, this here, oh, the lumbar support on the passenger seat goes really, really way out. Yeah, you can. The seat is pregnant. Yeah, indeed. They can also, of course, electrically push it backward now here again. And yeah, once again, very, very soft seating material. You almost like to touch the seat because it's so soft. So yeah, very impressed by the interior build quality. As for the infotainment, they of course need to do something to cater especially European customers where they want to push this car. And one of the things is that you have a lot of camera systems here, 360-degree view, but they make the GPS Google based. So you have two things. You have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That's very important. People want to have that here. So you can see here on the left side, then, for example, I can also extend it. This is the way. So this is Google Maps, native integration, and no other Chinese manufacturers has done that yet in that way. We know from Volvo and Polestar that they have the whole Google ecosystem. They here go in a different way. So they're the first manufacturer beside Mercedes that use their own operating system, but then do the Google Maps. So here Xpeng and Mercedes, own operating system, Google Maps, whereas Polestar and Volvo, they really have the whole system Google with Google Maps native support. Which is better or worse? It of course always argues of pros and cons. Matter of fact is that you have the GPS via Google Maps. That's important, like for live traffic information. And in this case, you also have your trusted interface, basically, whereas Mercedes says, hey, we still want to have the look like Mercedes, but then Google Maps in the background. Rear seats, all soft here in the rear doors, here as well. Entry mechanism is here. This is even all the way soft, hard packing only inside, but also with a rubber pad. Then Isofix on the outside seats each, and you have the same super soft high-grade leatherette. And trust me, you just want to keep petting these seats because the material feels so nice. Then you put on this one, adaptive cup holders here somewhat. This one can be adjusted like this, can sit a little bit more upright. This is also nice, but you can also go a little bit backward like this. Then you have here, when I'm driving as a tall person, still some legroom left, that's fine, even EV floor. And yes, I say that you don't have the highest SUV, but I mean, considering this an electric platform and has battery underneath, the angle of my knees is not too bad. So sometimes I'm in these EVs, especially the lower seating ones, and then I have my legs like this, but this is actually fine. So it's very relaxing here in the rear. And then you might ask yourself, why would you need a larger segment vehicle, right? Probably because of the trunk difference. Then, that might be coming up soon. But here, headroom wise, with 1A9, 6 for 2, also no problem. And then you have some hangers here for jackets or for some other stuff. Also then with these quarter mounts as well for more cameras or whatever. And the ambient lighting is also at the inside of the door here. And underneath one of the seats here you have an additional storage drawer where you can put in some clutter and just let it disappear. Now to the trunk or the boot, which is at 370 liters. And here you see some limitations when it comes to the comparison to the G6, to the bigger brother here. In the height here under the cover, you can hardly only pull this cover over it, so you have to put them in a different kind of way, these cabin trolleys. You can also, of course, remove that, then it would easily fit. And then here underneath, you have some space underneath. This looks like additional dampening here. So, also interesting, right? And some space underneath, not too much. And you can set these here, as shown previously, different like here in more cargo position, and you have an individual folding like this and like this and like this, and now they should all fold. Measurements here, the normal length is at 86 centimeters, 34 inches. The width here, 1.40 meters. The height here in this highest position, 25 inches, 64 centimeters. And the total length to these front seats, we're here at 1 meters 85, 72 inches. The official WLTP range figures for the, you can also say plug-in hybrid. Well, it's rather range extender because it's still electric with this 37 kilowatt-hour battery LFP, and then the engine comes on top, 42-liter fuel tank. So the range for the range extender version is promised around 200 kilometers fully electric, and then overall around 1,000 kilometers. They say 600 miles because of the range extender. We have to see how it is in reality. Then for the fully electric versions, WLTP European cycle figures are 450 kilometers somewhat for the small battery, 520 kilometers for the big battery. So I would then rather say a good 400 kilometers, 250 miles for the big battery, a range which also includes motorway driving and so on. And just received here the more detailed pricing. So just under 36,000 euros entry level, as I said, then 39, just under 8,000 euros for the big battery, so about 3,000 euros extra for that, and that makes total sense. Then 42,000 euros for the all-wheel drive version, additional electric motor in the front, and the Ultra with the additional chipset, 47,000 euros, including 20-inch wheels. So impressive, of course, the pricing, also that it charges relatively fast for a 400-volt charging, and of course the interior build quality and the comfort, and that you can go fully animal-free without any compromise on luxury, and that they also use proper door handles from the outside. We also have to see about how it actually drives. This will be very crucial, but the overall package, and considering also the price-performance ratio, is definitely compelling. Looking forward to your comments on that one. The only thing, I would maybe wish for a little bit more physical dials on the interior, because maybe I'm too old for this, but looking forward also to how the user interface will handle while driving. At least we also have Google Maps support, so they also thought about, hey, what do the European customers need? And of course the Apple CarPlay and the Android Auto and so on. We'll soon also then drive this one for you, and now join us for more videos on Xpeng or of course the direct competitors.